which Jedi in Star Wars died the most absurd death? There are plenty of arguments to be made about the most unceremonious deaths, and on the other end, the most benign. But what about Jedi who died in such ridiculous ways? You almost want to go up to the writers and ask them, what were you thinking? I'm going to outline some of the best contenders, and at the end, I'm going to reveal the winner, because in my opinion, it's no contest. There is one Jedi who died in such a comical fashion, if they ever adapted his death scene for live action, it would basically be a horror film. I want to preface this by saying, it can't just be horrific. It has to be occasions where the writers went above and beyond and did something ridiculous. But no more jibber jabber, let's get into the list. Number 1, Jurokk, the Jedi Temple Gatekeeper in Revenge of the Sith. The scene only exists in the novelization because George Lucas cut it from the movie. It really did go a bit too far, but that's the reason it's made the list. During Order 66, when Anakin Skywalker, now Darth Vader, storms the Jedi Temple, a Jedi gatekeeper known as Jurokk rushes over and asks him where Master Windu and the other Jedi Masters went. Vader ignores him and instead asks him where Sha'a Gi is. When the Jedi gatekeeper responds, Vader ignites his lightsaber through Jurokk's chin, killing him instantly, going right through his head. This gruesome death was cut, but it's still in Matthew Stover's novelization of Episode 3. Now on to the next contender, Wookiee Jedi Master Tyvokka. The reason for this Jedi's death prior to the Phantom Menace was all down to a mistake. Simple droid programming gone wrong. Here's how the situation went down. Chancellor Valorum of the Republic was sent to a peace summit which took place on Troikan to mend relations between the Stark Commercial Combine and the Trade Federation. Valorum brought along with him Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Plo Koon, Adi Gallia, and Jedi Master Tyvokka. Tyvokka was chosen because of his ability to sense what was to come, Force Premonition. So, when they arrived at Troikan, they rendezvoused with the Trade Federation's representative, you guessed it, Newt Gunray, and in turn were met by the head of the Stark Commercial Combine, Ayako Stark. But as soon as they arrived, Stark had his men draw their weapons on Tyvokka and his companions, and demanded their immediate surrender. A battle ensued, and Tyvokka correctly stated that Stark had planned this from the start. And that's when the Jedi insisted that Newt Gunray activate his droids to assist them. But Gunray's vague order to, quote, kill them all, resulted in the droids opening fire on the Jedi as well, killing Tyvokka. He was caught unawares and struck by 3 blaster bolts across the chest. So in this instance, we have a Jedi who died during friendly fire, as the droids who were meant to help them had limited programming. And while most of them got away, Tyvokka didn't, and he died in very unusual circumstances. Our next candidate is Coleman Trebor. You remember his death from Attack of the Clones, and this is one of those deaths that fans have seen as very comical for years, and you can understand why. Coleman Trebor was among one of the earliest deaths during the Battle of Geonosis. He jumped into the arena stands at Petronarchy Arena with the aim of killing Count Dooku. As soon as he lands on the platform, Jango Fett jumps into action and shoots him 4 times. The first 2 shots he's able to deflect, but the latter 2 hit him square in the chest and he falls to his death. So fans are wondering, if he was such a skilled Jedi Master, how did he die in such an absurd and easy way? Well, what you need to remember is that this was one of the Jedi originally intended to be a background Jedi. His death was symbolic as a way for George Lucas to demonstrate the power and legitimacy of the threat of Jango, even though Jango would die at the hands of Mace Windu. But compared to someone like Mace, Coleman Trebor was nowhere near as skilled. I think what's really sad about Coleman Trebor is that, if you look at his backstory, he was initially thought to be one of the most promising upcoming Jedi Masters of the entire Order, even though it doesn't seem like it in Attack of the Clones. Taken from his homeworld of Sembla, his abilities were spotted very early on. He completed his training as an initiate and Padawan very early, passing the Jedi trials and then becoming a knight. He was eventually granted the rank of Master, and replaced Yariel Poof on the Jedi High Council. But for all of his abilities and all of his skills, it seems like he had a very anticlimactic death. Still, it is far from being the most absurd. That award goes to Jedi Sha'a Gi, or Shaggy if you prefer, because this guy from the 2D Clone Wars micro-series is based on the Scooby-Doo character. Sha'a Gi was a human male who served as Jedi Padawan during the Clone Wars. Born on the planet Ord Binir, which originally was just in Star Wars Legends, but thanks to the Force Awakens role-playing game and the Rogue One visual guide, it's canon. He was a Jedi with a lot of anxiety, and according to Jedi Master Yoda, he was one of the least skilled in the entire order. During training, it was evident that Gi's combat abilities were not on par with those of his contemporaries. That being said, he did demonstrate a remarkable aptitude with computer systems, and as such, Gi hoped to one day take up a position in the Jedi archives. Unfortunately though, my dear friends, he would never make it. In 22 BBY, the Clone Wars erupted across the galaxy and the Confederacy of Independent Systems took up arms against the ruling Galactic Republic. Along with Jedi Master Dakman Barek, Sha'a Gi was on a mission disrupting pirate activity in the Outer Rim, when word came through that Barek's first Padawan was killed during the Battle of Geonosis. Barek accepted the rank of general within the Grand Army of the Republic, and dedicated himself to the war effort. As his new Padawan, Sha'a Gi followed his master's lead. Eventually, the pair found a droid foundry operated by the CIS. That's when the Jedi Council deployed Ki-Adi-Mundi, Shaak-Ti, Kukruk, Aayla Secura and Tarsia to help them. The Jedi took refuge in the wreck of an Acclamator-class assault ship, and they were surrounded by droid forces under the command of General Grievous. This is where things took a really dark turn. During the fierce fighting, Master Barek managed to contact Master Obi-Wan Kenobi, who had recently taken the planet Munilist for the Republic. Barek informed Obi-Wan of the situation, before he was then killed by Grievous. And without Barek's presence, Sha'a Gi began to lose his nerve, as his self-doubt, fears, and anxieties began creeping in. From inside the wreck, the Jedi were able to hear Grievous approaching, and Gi was visibly unnerved by the sound of the footsteps. The cyborg general was hunting them. As the assembled Jedi waited for Grievous to assault them, Gi panicked and rushed out of the wreckage into the open. And that's when Grievous, with full body weight, landed on top of Gi. Grievous's talons speared through the Jedi's body, and he was crushed to death. It's such a crazy, absurd, gruesome death. And the wildest thing is that we never saw Gi's body. I know it's not canon, and I know it's 2D animated, but imagine if this was live action. It's like he was crushed out of the Matrix, into another dimension, no-clipped into the backrooms. What's really terrifying is that, if you imagine General Grievous's design from Revenge of the Sith, you realize just how menacing he would be if he just dropped on you like that. Not just falling on you, destroying you with his weight, and his spiked talons. I genuinely feel terrible for Sha'a Gi. Sha'a Gi's death is an exercise of pure, distilled fear. It reminds me of the Gorman massacre in the expanded universe. I know the second season of Andor is about to show it to us, but are they going to have Tarkin's warship land on protesters? It's that level of insane. Visually horrific. It's fine in animation. Grievous landing on a Jedi Padawan is kind of comedic, but imagine if that was in Revenge of the Sith. Just the agony, the sudden impalement. There are no words for it. As was highlighted in Ahsoka and to an extent in The Acolyte, Padawans were not warriors yet. They were young children and teenagers. They didn't have much experience. He doesn't fall with honor. He's almost a victim of the position the Jedi Order put him in, consumed by fear. And in that moment, in that rush of panic, he was undone. There are plenty of other examples, my dear friends. If you have any suggestions, maybe from the comics, maybe from the Old Republic, maybe another one from the Clone Wars, 2D or 3D, perhaps it's one of Shaak-Ti's many deaths. I'd love to know your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, guys, as always, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, check me out on socials, and may the Force be with you, always.